What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and today we are continuing with our 7-round mock draft for all 32 teams in the 2018 NFL draft class. And as of the 26th of March, we're going to be talking about today the team that holds the 29th pick in the first round, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So close, but so far away of reaching the Super Bowl last year. I can't believe how not aggressive they were. They didn't just stay on top of the Patriots. But either way, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. We Eagles would have stomped either one of those teams. Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And ultimately, for this mock draft, I really like it. There's some mock drafts that I'm not a huge fan of, others that I really do enjoy, and this Jags is near the top of that list. But before we jump into the mock draft, we need to look at what they did via free agency and how that set up our draft board. So looking at what they lost Chris Ivory. He went to the Bills. They lost Paul Posluszny to retirement. Shout out to the greatest neck in the biz. They lost Allen Robinson, who went to the Chicago Bears. Personally, I probably would have re-signed Allen Robinson, but that's just me. Allen Hurns got released. He went to the Dallas Cowboys. I think that was a good contract to get rid of. They lost Aaron Colvin, so they lost a starting nickel corner. Very valuable pick. We'll talk about that in the draft. And Mercedes Lewis got cut because they have like 400 tight ends and 300 running backs on this roster right now. So they need to clear up some space. Looking at what they brought in, they're able to retain Marquise Lee. Like I said, if I'm comparing the two, I know the contracts were kind of similar, but definitely less to re-sign Marquise Lee. I probably would have checked with the change to get Allen Robinson, but I digress. They brought in Andrew Norwell, which is maybe one of the biggest fish you could get this year in free agency. I think when you're looking at all the positions, you kind of eliminate the importance of a quarterback because ultimately the QB is going to be number one. I think just in terms of pure talent, Norwell might have been the best pound-for-pound free agent in this year's draft class, and the Jags, who just always need to sign the best of the best in terms of free agency, got their fish. They brought in Dante Moncrief on a pretty ridiculous-looking deal, but we'll see what happens there. They brought in DJ Hayden, also on a pretty ridiculous-looking deal at face value, like 3 or $19 million for a bust. Don't understand that. But then they did actually a nice piece of business and bring in an Austin Seferian-Jacobs on what looks to be an affordable deal. Looks like he finally is turning the corner after some shaky years in Tampa Bay, some off the field, some DUI, and was pretty productive down the stretch for the Jets last year. So he could be the answer at tight end for the Jags, another weapon for the offense, and that is their free agency move. So now, how does that set the mock draft? Well, let's jump into it. So in the first round at pick 29, I was selecting offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame. Not as high as some other people are, to be honest with you. But ultimately, in what is a weak tackle class, I think that he has one of the better ceilings. I don't think, personally, he is as refined as some people think, and some people have him going top 10 and stuff like that, and have him as a top tackle. But I think he is good at the start. I think he's good enough to challenge Jeremy Purnell for the starting right tackle gig. And looking long-term, having your tackles covered by Cam Robinson, who was a second-round pick last year, probably a first-round talent, and Mike McGlinchey for the long-term. Very nice. If you're Leonard Fournette and those are your starting tackles with now Brandon Linder and Andrew Norwell, you're a very happy man. And me personally, I'm going to be looking at targeting Leonard Fournette very early in my fantasy football drafts if something like this was to come to fruition by them selecting a tackle. I think Mike McGlinchey, yeah, good athlete. I believe I don't want to be misquoted, but I think he played tight end at some point in his career. Might have been high school. I think that was like one of those old tidbits that Mike Mayock brought into everyone's ear holes at the NFL Combine, NFL Network. But ultimately, Mike McGlinchey is a prospect with some upside. Not as pro-ready as most, but still can start as a tackle as a rookie. And I think he should add some competition to the right tackle spot. Worst case scenario, he can be a swing tackle as a rookie and probably, after 1 year, be able to take over that starting gig in 2019. Going to the second round, pick 61. It is going to be a player that I really wanted my Philadelphia Eagles to get, but after his showing in the Combine, he probably gonna be gone, and that is cornerback Duke Dawson from Florida. Looking at the loss of Aaron Colvin, they lost their starting nickel, which is kind of painful. And let's be honest, I get they might have signed DJ Hayden to be that role. I can't see where they're coming from with that. I think a guy like Duke Dawson, proven nickel corner, built to be a nickel corner, great at tackling, great physicality, great mentality, fits what they're building there with AJ Boye and Jalen Ramsey. They can kind of talk a little bit of trash back there, getting kind of angry. So I think that is, that's where the money's at. That is where the money is at, and that is where I would have them going here in the second round. He's a beast. He's an absolute. I can tell you right now, outside of Taven Bryan, he's been probably the most consistent player on the Florida Gators defense over the last 12 months. Moving to the third round, pick 93. I was selecting quarterback Mike White from Western Kentucky. I get they gave a little bit of a commitment there to Blake Bortles. Wasn't a massive deal, but enough to say, hey, you got us one game away from the Super Bowl. Let's see if we can develop a little bit more. Another year in Hackett's system. See what can happen. But I think they should be prepared. And a guy like Mike White, he's probably the best of the second bunch, like right after the Mason Rudolph tier. Mike White's one of those guys that some people say, yes, at some point, definitely not earlier on in his career, but he can be an NFL starter. He has all the tools, all the tangibles, the size, the arm, the accuracy that you want. Just need to get him, a little bit more adept to the pros, a little bit more NFL friendly. So sitting behind Blake Bortles, I think Mike White, would be instantly one of those, like, kind of think of AJ McCarron behind Andy Dalton there in Cincinnati in terms of, well, there's an unproven backup. Let's give him a shot because our main starters are looking a little bit uninspiring. I think that may be something. And I think if you're a Jags fan, a lot of teams, you don't want the quarterback contrary. But I think you're a Jags fan where you're constantly frustrated with Blake Bortles. This would be a good dilemma for you guys to have. So I think Mike White, you'd probably have to reach for him in the 3rd round. I think, personally, I'd feel comfortable if, say, my team needed a quarterback, getting him in the 4th. But I think in the 3rd round, to get that, not necessarily an insurance policy, but maybe a potential down payment on your next quarterback in the 3rd round is not expensive at all and worth the gamble. Going to the 4th round, pick 129. I have them selecting. I was going to put a linebacker in here because of the hole that Paul Posluszny kind of filled. I didn't get a linebacker. That's probably the one position I want to draft for the Jags, but I just couldn't put drafting for needs over best player available. In the 4th round at 129, I'm selecting defensive end Dorrance Armstrong from Kansas, a guy that just did not test well at all. Inconsistent tape. A year ago, this was 2016, 2017 season, I would have said fringe first rounder. Last year was, not terrible by any means, but he didn't elevate his game any. And his combine was not great for a guy that's slightly undersized defensive end. But more so, I think defensive end is something to keep an eye on because the salary cap is going to come back and bite the Jags in the ass sometime. And I personally feel like, they're kind of banking on Calais Campbell getting ready to retire soon. He's, 31, 32. You got Ngakoue, you got Dante Fowler. You got to be able to re-sign Dante Fowler when his contract comes up. I think it's this year. They might not have that kind of cash. I don't know if they're going to get ready to move on from Darius, from Malik Jackson. Something's going to happen on that defensive line because they have way too much money invested there. So I think it's time to start getting younger guys on smaller contracts. And a guy like Dorrance Armstrong will be falling to this 4th spot. Won't have to get rushed in. Can get readjusted. Can get converted to whatever the Jags want them to do. Todd Wash has been a very good DC. I think they'll be able to get the most out of Dorrance Armstrong. Maybe get him to bulk up a little bit. He's just one of those guys, he doesn't know what he wants to be. He looks like he got stuck bulking up. Is he going to be your speed guy? Is he going to try to be more of a power guy in the NFL? What is he going to be? Going to the Jags, he's going to have that time to figure that out, as well as get involved on that very heavy rotation with Fowler, Smoot, Calais Campbell, and Yannick Ngakoue. Going to the 6th round at pick 203, I was selecting wide receiver Jaleel Scott from New Mexico State. I think he comes in and can compete for that wide receiver 4 spot, wide receiver 5, but ultimately adds a dimension to this offense that they don't have. You have Dante Moncrief, a little bit rangier, but I wouldn't consider him a red zone threat. Marquise Lee, inside-outside guy. Rashad Green, slot guy. Jalen Strong, what really is he? D.D. Westbrook's your burner. Keelan Cole's kind of your jack-of-all-trades. But where's your big possession go-to red zone type guy? Well, Jaleel Scott's almost 6'6". He has a human highlight reel of one-handed catches in the red zone, and he actually tested a little bit better than some people expected at the combine. I think he's definitely one of the better value picks at the wide receiver position, and ultimately when you lose really the production of Allen Hurns, the production of Allen Robinson, maybe they weren't so hot last year because obviously Hurns was not good for some reason, and Robinson had the injury. I think Hurns actually might have dealt with a little bit of injuries too throughout the season. Like I said, I'm not super up to date with the Jags. I just know that both those guys' stat lines were not pretty. I know for sure, obviously, AR-15 got the injury. So I do feel like Jaleel Scott adds a dimension to the wide receiver core that could complement what they already have, and he has big-time upside for sure. And worst-case scenario, you might view him as a tight end. He might be able to next, like the Ricky Seals-Jones type thing, where he actually had a pretty productive season with the Cardinals, but at Texas A&M, he was just a big wide receiver. So he also has the frame to fill it a little bit and maybe be like a wide receiver tight end hybrid type. Now I'll finish up in the 7th round at pick 230. I was selecting offensive lineman Cody O'Connell from Washington State. Again, kind of a best player available move here. I think O'Connell could go 5th, 6th round. He's a massive human being. He's like 6'8", 350. Play guard, he can play tackle. I think just that versatility adds a little bit more depth to the Jags offensive line where they have so much money invested in their starters. You gotta get guys with upside that are on cheap deals. And I think a guy like Cody O'Connell with that versatility would be an upgrade over, say, Brandon Thomas. Who's that? Chris Reed? What? Who's that? Josh Wells? No? Okay, bye. So there you go. And then the final pick in the 7th round, I really want, like I said, this pick here, I really want to put a linebacker here. Not gonna lie, there's no really linebackers left. So what we went with is running back Ito Smith from Southern Miss. And here's why. When you look at the running back stable, you're going to assume TJ Yeldon's probably gone after this year, so it's going to be Leonard Fournette. You have Corey Grant for the explosive guy. what else do you got there? Is Corey Link going to be able to take his game to the next level, or is he going to pigeonholed as like the offensive weapon type? So then you get a guy like Ito Smith, who's one of the most elusive backs in college football, and very much is that complement to what you get in Leonard Fournette, which is your straight ahead, just power, monster, absolute animal, grown man football type of running back. So more so here in the 7th round, best player available, trying to find a complement for Leonard Fournette in the future, and Ito Smith very much fills that role. So like I said, guys, ultimately, it would have been nice to try to find maybe Paul Pelosi's replacement for the middle linebacker spot, because right now, according to ourlads.com, it's Donald Payne. Who's that? But, you know, actually, you know what? Low-key, maybe keep an eye on for like maybe someone like Navarro Bowman to go with the Jags. There's still some linebackers out there in free agency that could fill that void, but again, there just wasn't a scenario where a linebacker was where I was picking, enough so that it was Trump best player available. So there you go, guys. That is my Jacksonville Jaguars mock draft. If you agree or disagree with any of the picks you saw today, let me know in the comment section below. If you have your own Jags mock draft, post it. We can do a nice little side-by-side comparison. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.